Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the podcast shout out for our Halloween episode. And while we're not going with a horror movie podcast or anything, we're going with a podcast that I've really found rather entertaining as of late. It's called Your Favorite Band Sucks. And basically, they tackle a specific band, like let's say, Slayer, they did Sublime, they've done Madonna, and they just dress them down and just tell people how badly they suck. And it's really, really cool. Their Sublime episode is the best because, quite frankly, I can't stand Sublime. So...
Beau, you don't practice Santeria.
No, I do not practice Santeria. So anyway, check them out on Apple Podcasts. Check them out wherever else you get your podcasts. And find them on Twitter and on whatever social media you can find. Instagram, Facebook, And anyway, with that out of the way, on with the show. I'm Beau Maddox.
I'm Robert Ortegon.
I'm Ashley Chancellor. I'm Dakota Chancellor.
This is Collateral Cinema.
Welcome to Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters, where we focus on good movies, bad movies, and everything else in between in the world of cinema. We are podcasting straight from San Antonio, Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast. So whatever you have, be it bongs, be it blunts, be it anything marijuana related, smoke it if you've got it. Folks, today is our Halloween episode.
What
do you got? Beau, Robert, what are you guys doing for Halloween?
Oh, probably going to be drinking a lot, watching horror movies.
Yep. Probably a Halloween marathon happening somewhere.
Yeah, dude. Bro, just come over to my house. We'll watch a bunch of horror movies.
Watch the Cult of the Thorn or something, right?
Hell yeah, just the entire Cult trilogy, the entire Thorn trilogy.
Plug it.
Yeah. And maybe we'll also watch like Mandy or something. I don't know.
More Halloween related stuff.
Halloween related? Well, we should totally watch Antichrist.
Antichrist.
It's my daughter's first Halloween, so I mean we're kind of trying to figure out what we're gonna do. I mean, this weekend we're gonna do some Halloween related stuff, but
now, are you going to dress her up as a pumpkin?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think we're gonna be a little bit more original than that.
Aww.
I don't know. Maybe we'll see. and Dakota, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, that's right. Dakota isn't here
Because he has a video game addiction.
Hey, I'm right here, guys.
I'm right here, guys.
Hey, I'm right here.
I'm right here.
Yeah. So
Talk about me, guys.
I'm a good boy.
funny story.
I'm a little buddy.
Dakota's here. He lives here at this house. Okay, he's here, and his friend Brandon's here too. He just decided not to watch the movie and not to be on the show. So
wah wah wah.
we're gonna have an intervention.
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a talk. We're gonna have
long talk
With his Apex addiction.
and
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe we'll record it and we'll put it out as a special episode, and it'll be funny. maybe we'll get Michael Cornwell in on it. He'll
Damn, he's just gonna clown that shit out of it.
he'll clown the shit out of Dakota.
He would. Well, guys, for this very special Halloween special, we're going to be talking about what is widely regarded as the greatest and most influential of all horror and thriller films. And what is that, guys?
The Shining, right?
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, originally, written by Stephen King, the novel.
Yeah, but of course, what Stanley Kubrick ended up filming was a little far removed from what the novel was.
It is, and we're gonna talk about that. First off, though, okay, let's talk a little bit about Stanley Kubrick. I mean, as a director, as a producer, Beau, as far as his filmography goes,
he has directed some of the greatest works of the 20th century. Honestly, 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange. I mean, this movie, he did Paths of Glory, he did Doctor Strangelove.
Oh, yeah, and he did the Moonlighting too, right?
Allegedly.
No, just kidding. No, we actually went to the moon, guys. There's no denying it.
No, yeah, we went to the moon. Yeah, Russia would have been all over that if we didn't.
Yeah, honestly, it would have cost more to fake the moon landing. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, Stanley Kubrick, he's a busy guy.
He was a busy guy. He passed away many years ago.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Now, he's the director, producer, and writer for this, and also co-writer Diane Johnson. Do you know anything about her work?
Not a whole lot. Robert, do you know much about her?
No.
Honestly,
No, I don't.
once again, there's the Collateral Cinema lack of research.
Yes.
Damn it.
Well, lucky for you guys, I have Wikipedia pulled up here.
On iPhone.
Okay.
So, I mean, she's written a lot of novels. So,
Oh, wow. She's an actual author.
yeah, like an actual author. And I guess she also writes screenplays. So,
Whoa. No.
there we
Nice.
go. Nothing else to say other than that.
Working writer. Hell yeah.
Now, did Stephen King at any point have any involvement in the screenplay?
As far as I know, he didn't. But I mean, obviously, he did write the novel.
Yeah.
And the novel is one of his more famous novels, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, even especially because of this movie.
And from what I understand, it's just as batshit crazy as most of his other original, like more well-known works. You know, like It.
Yeah, which we just covered in
Yeah.
chapter 2 in our
Our preseason episode.
preseason
Bonus episode. Check it out.
Yeah. It was a At the Movies episode. We give our thoughts on it, and if you haven't checked that out, check that out. So, The Shining actually has quite a bit of a cultural impact, both the novel and the film. Like I said before, it's widely regarded to be a great horror film, possibly the greatest and most influential. And
It's up there as some of the most greatest works of cinema in film history, honestly.
yeah,
Thanks to Warner Brothers, right? Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, Warner Brothers giving Stanley Kubrick free reign over this, which, of course, didn't really go over well with Stephen King.
No, yeah, famously Stephen King actually doesn't like the movie.
He still doesn't. Like, I think that his overall opinion really hasn't changed that much.
Yeah,
Honestly.
and I think, especially among book readers, I think this movie's going to be controversial for the ways in which it deviates. Because I know that there are certain things, like certain ways that the characters and themes are portrayed, differ quite a bit. But if anything, if you learn from like It, for instance, It Chapter 2, was a little bit less praised than its predecessor. That may be because it did stay more faithful to the novel. So I'm going to say that, in some cases, especially a Stephen King novel with the coke fueled.
Yeah, all the coke fueled nonsense. It gets a little bit much.
Yeah, I think some of that just doesn't translate well on screen, and that's okay. That's why we have different mediums. We have different media like video games that are better for telling certain stories. We have movies that are good, and we have books that are good for telling. So in some cases, where Stanley Kubrick made some changes to this film to make it translate better to cinema, there may actually be a good argument for that. And
well, yeah, it is inherently one of the most cinematic movies you're bound to find in the horror genre or in cinema, period. I mean, It's up there with like Tarkovsky's Stalker, with like some of Hitchcock's work, like fucking Vertigo.
Oh yeah.
It's up there with stuff like that. And this, once again, coming from a director that has made some legendary fucking movies.
yeah, in fact, this movie, The Shining, is another movie that's been selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress, being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. I mean, that was something we mentioned in our Princess Bride episode.
Oh yeah.
And also in Bullet, I remember.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I think Eraserhead might be in there as well.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it is.
it could possibly, yeah.
It's gotta be. If it's not, it should be.
I mean, yeah, this movie, I mean, even if it does deviate quite a bit from the book, it really stands on its own. And I think Stanley Kubrick has managed to craft his own version of the story that's just as recognizable and equally as relevant, to pop culture. And I think that's important sometimes. So I know, for instance, certain characters like, the main character, Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson, is portrayed a little bit more sinister in the movie from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much kind of get the idea that this dude is a massive fucking dick. Like, pretty much from the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, even from the moment that you see him do the interview, he's immediately just kind of sitting there with kind of this puckish, what can you do for me attitude already.
Yeah.
It comes across as a little off-putting, and when you get into some of the symbolism in that particular scene, especially with a lot of the red, white, and blue motifs, it's like, I guess you can say it's some kind of critique of America, maybe.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about the casting later.
Yeah.
But, that's one thing is that Jack Torrance was portrayed quite a bit differently in that, instead of being an initially likable character, he's sinister throughout. We also see one famous change that may not seem like it makes a big difference, but the room number was changed from 217 to 237.
Interesting.
And that's actually well known because you said there's a documentary called Room 237.
Oh yeah, by the way, don't watch that shit, ladies and gentlemen. It's a bunch of conspiratorial nonsense. They actually try to say that it's linked to the moon landing conspiracy theory, and that's just like, no, guys.
Yeah.
You can find way better analysis on this movie on YouTube. Like, I watched a lot of stuff by Rob Ager, like from What is Anti-Logic. They have a good theory about the movie where there is no ghost. We'll probably get into actual theories about the movie here a little later, right? That
would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the actual reasoning for changing the numbering actually has to do with the hotel that was shot, Timberline Lodge.
That's right. They had a room 217.
Right. And they thought that people might be afraid to sleep there. So they changed it to a non-existent room, 237. What's funny is that 217 is requested more often than any other room because of this movie.
And didn't they eventually just change it to 237 just for the fame factor?
I don't know about that.
I kind of remember reading something about that.
Yeah. Some other differences, too, is the motivation of the ghosts, the idea of Jack being a reincarnation of a previous caretaker. That was kind of a last-minute addition.
Well, that's assuming that those are ghosts we're talking about.
Right.
Once again, we will get into that here a little later.
Yeah, how much of it is supernatural versus psychological is definitely something that was in my mind during the film. Danny Torrance in the novel supposedly, I haven't read it, but in the novel Danny is a lot more, is more intelligent, and he's more open about his psychic abilities. Wendy apparently is a more strong, independent character.
Yeah, she came across as a little frail and a little completely nerves shattered and everything, but there's a good reason for that. It's because of the way that Stanley Kubrick specifically directed her. Like, he harangued her and fucking harassed her and just made her break down. That was pretty much her exasperation with the direction that Kubrick was giving her, and she really hasn't recovered from it.
Really?
Yeah, she has had some rough times recently, and it's very sad, actually. And a lot of it kind of goes back to her doing that role. There's some actresses that they can do a role like that they could bounce back from. Like, let's say, Isabella Adjani. She did her role in Possession. That was
crazy movie, dude.
That's a crazy movie, and her fucking performance in that was so exhausting that she had to take 7 years off just to recover from it. But
damn,
eventually she bounced back from it. Or if you look at performances like, say, Monica Bellucci, like what she did in something like Irreversible, where she endured pretty much an uninterrupted 9-minute rape scene. A lot of those actresses, they can go through some serious shit and bounce back from it, but for some reason, like Shelley Duvall, she didn't even go through half of that shit, and Stanley Kubrick kind of broke her.
Really? Yeah. Speaking of which, the way in which Stanley Kubrick, the direction in which he took the film, is really interesting. I was looking at the cinematography and for instance, the camera work. What do you think about that, Robert?
Oh, very David Lynchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how it kind of follows the characters.
Oh yeah, when he's on the big wheel and the screeching noise, what is that again? Dang.
Yeah, which gets even more confusing because the way that the set is designed is meant to have a bunch of weird spatial anomalies throughout.
Yeah, I noticed that.
If you actually look at the layout, whenever Danny is actually riding on his big wheel, some of it doesn't make sense. It's all of a sudden he's going from the Colorado room, he's going to the hallway where the gold room is at, he's going into the kitchen randomly. It's almost like the space of the hotel is just constantly shifting. And apparently a lot of that is actually documented in the blueprints for the set that's at the Stanley Kubrick archive.
Wow, that is cool.
He specifically set it up that way. Even with the labyrinth, Like he would, like, they only had like a small section of the labyrinth actually built for all the scenes in there. Like, they didn't use the entire thing.
I don't suppose they told you anything in Denver about the tragedy we had up here during the winter of 1970? Well, a man named Charles Grady is the winter caretaker. And he came up here with his wife and two little girls, I think about 8 and 10. From what I've been told, I mean, he seemed like a completely normal individual. But at some point during the winter, he must have suffered some kind of a complete mental breakdown. He ran amok and killed his family with an axe.
You can rest assured, Mr. Ullman, that's not going to happen with me.
Mom? Yeah? Do you really want to go and live in that hotel for the winter?
Sure I do. It'll be lots of fun.
Yeah, I guess so.
For some people, solitude and isolation can of itself become a problem.
What dude? I killed you and Danny.
You did this to me. Didn't you? How could you? How could you?
Here's Johnny.
He would still have his crew come in and completely rearrange the goddamn labyrinth, like overnight on his crew and everything. And he would on purpose change up the map. Not actually, he wouldn't change the map to fit those changes. So his actors and his crew would get lost.
Legitimately lost.
They would get legitimately lost, and they would say that they would hear Kubrick just laughing whenever they were calling out, Stanley! Stanley! He would just laugh from outside the damn set.
That is hilarious.
It's like, what an asshole. God damn, he did that specifically to kind of have this weird kind of shifting quality to the environment.
Yeah, and like you said, you can even see it in like some of the performances, like Shelley Duvall, you know.
Yeah, she's so out of it, right, Robert? I mean, what do you think about her performance?
Damn, the way he just broke her down into that character, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she goes from kind of
Like
sweet,
the sweetest the nicest person like ever. Like I'll make you a sandwich and stuff. Like,
and then she's just completely done by the end. Broken by the end.
As soon as he
it.
saw the son, just like what he did to him. Like,
yeah, she was just broken. And what's amazing is a lot of the sound design and a lot of the music kind of accentuates her performance a little bit.
That's what I was thinking, is that, you know, I really like how the soundtrack is completely tense throughout the movie.
Yeah, he actually took a lot of that from David Lynch's Eraserhead, because that's a movie where there's constant, you know, droning, there's constant humming and buzzing. It's always going on in the background. There's never quiet in that movie.
It's very prevalent all the time. Even these seemingly like mundane situations are terrifying.
Yeah.
Because of the way, I noticed that early on, just because of the way that the soundtrack is lifting the moment. And, you know, as far as the cinematography goes, I mean, for a film in the 80s, I mean, this was...
Well, if you notice, like, especially Robert would agree with me here, Robert, there was a lot of shots from a distance that still kind of kept people centered and everything. It was either that or there's usually shots really up close to each of the actors, right?
Or mirror's image scenes, like,
yeah,
reflecting back.
I mean, for a 1980 film, this feels every bit as engaging and terrifying as a film today. And I mean that because, you know, with a lot of modern cinematography, we figured out ways to set up shots. And yet, I mean, this movie, I think, is kind of ahead of its time.
It really was, man. And it pretty much established the term Kubrickian as a type of directorial style, you know?
But I like how plain the text of the film is laid out. It looks like it literally was made in like Windows Movie Maker.
I know, right?
Like especially in the scrolling credits in the beginning. But I feel like that was an intentional design choice.
Yeah.
And the text that pops up that separates each scene and the time gaps, you know?
Well, I think the most important thing about that is that it's so sparse and it's so spaced out. Like even in those first few moments in the intro, like when you hear that first bum, 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 but you don't see any text, you don't see any logos, you don't see anything. You just see that expansive shot that's angled that goes over that island, you know? And then it's continuously moving over the mountain range and everything. And it's pretty much following
a VW bug.
Following a VW bug going down the road, and then eventually it just goes straight into the interview.
Yeah. I really thought the intro really captivated me, and the way you have those shots, and then like you said, the way that the script is set up and the lead into each scene, and the moving back and forth between the interview and Wendy and Danny in the beginning. You know.
Yeah.
Robert, as our resident aspiring filmmaker.
No, I wouldn't say that yet.
I mean, what do you?
Oh, come on now.
Aspiring filmmaker.
Robert, we have a little something coming up.
Yeah, we got some projects.
I heard Killing Night is done. It's complete as far as shooting goes.
Filming wise, we wrapped it up like a few days ago.
Yeah, we'll talk a little more about that closer to the end of the show. We'll kind of go into a little more details, but yeah. Aspiring filmmaker. Go on.
It's you guys.
What do you think about the cinematography, Robert?
I think it's a lot more David Lynchy, more than anything.
Really. Yeah, but it still has that Kubrickian quality to it. You know, there's always that. You know, like I said, he knows how to set up space shots and he knows how to do close-ups well.
It's crazy. It's like I'm looking at the same thing, almost like a what do you call it, deja vu, scene over and over, just repeating itself. Like,
and that's probably intentional because you know they specifically mentioned deja vu, except it's more than deja vu, right?
Yeah, it's way more than deja vu. It's more like reincarnation. That's what's kind of implied there.
I was really confused about that. I wasn't sure when I saw that at the end. I was like, because they mentioned like you've always been the caretaker. You know, and then at the end they show him in the photograph in like 1921, and I was just really confused about that. I was trying to figure out what was being implied.
Well, what they're going into is that the caretaker as a character himself is someone who's pretty much eternally doomed to constantly come to the Overlook Hotel, go insane, and kill his fucking family. Basically, it's a Nietzschean kind of thing. You know, it's called the thought of the eternal recurrence.
But then
basically, this caretaker character is pretty much doomed to completely repeat this path over and over again. It's not so much reincarnation; it's just a repeat of the same fate.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you say that the cycle's pretty much broken with Wendy and Danny actually escaping?
Yeah, it's definitely broken. And that's another one of the recurring themes is cycles of violence.
That's almost like Amityville Horror or something. Like the Fail murders. Like
that's another movie where actual cycles of violence kind of come into play.
It's supposed to be recurring. Like
yeah.
That's really deep. As far as I know, that was actually kind of an addition to the film that wasn't originally in the novel. If I'm not mistaken, was the idea of the reincarnation or you know, that cyclical nature of the caretaker. So, I mean, that's definitely somewhere where Stanley Kubrick took the direction of the film or reinforced.
Yeah.
That way. So, I mean, in other words, outside of the plot, which was already, obviously already written, I mean, this film shines in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Just with the way that the directing is set up. So, I mean, and going into that now, we can talk specifically about the plot too. I mean, I already mentioned, like the disjunctive time gaps, but what I like is how in the beginning of the film, the time gaps are more sparse, and then slowly they get closer and closer and closer together. Did you notice that?
I think what I noticed more is how there is more of a parallel between Jack's story and Danny's story. And that kind of goes to a central theory that's come out from the fan community and from the YouTube community, is that Jack Torrance himself has The Shining.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Which actually makes a lot more sense when you think about what he sees in the Gold Room when you think about it. It's like that's why, honestly, there was this theory that I saw on YouTube. I think it was by Anti-Logic. It's by What is Anti-Logic? That's the channel. And he put forth that there weren't actually ghosts there, that, and it goes back to what Halloran said to Danny, that it's not so much things that are real, they're just kind of like pictures. They're representations of what has happened before.
Like Ghost Ship, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Watching the movie, I actually wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure what was supernatural versus what was psychological, because a lot of it seems to be just Jack Torrance's, imagination. And that's kind of the way it comes off to me. Now, obviously, we do have psychic ability. So there is some kind of supernatural component here. We know that Danny has some kind of, psychic ability. He knows things. And even Jack is made aware of events that he shouldn't have access to.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there obviously is some supernatural work at play here, but how much of it, like you said, I really didn't get the feeling that it was ghosts at all. It seemed to mostly be some manifestation, I think, of these characters' psychic states.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of goes into a theory that I really kind of grasp upon, which honestly makes a whole lot of sense, which is the idea that the whole movie is about Jack Torrance brutally sexually assaulting his son. That's what happened when he was all traumatized and everything and coming back from room 237. And room 237 is supposed to be kind of representative of that actual assault. And the dream that Jack Torrance has, which, let's face it, it is more or less a dream or hallucination. You don't actually ever see him go into room 237. That's basically a representation of the assault that happened.
Oh, so it's kind of like he looks at this thing and it seems like it's something that he wants because he sees this beautiful woman that's like seductive and stuff, and then suddenly he notices after embracing her that she's this ugly, like almost like maybe like leper, this old lady, and she's got like what seems to be some kind of leprosy or something. So maybe that's like guilt manifesting. There's something in front of him that at the time when he first goes into it is kind of this seductive quality, something that he thinks he wants. Then after he already embraces it, he feels guilty about it, and it seems ugly.
Well, another thing is that all of that is related to that one very brief scene is very, very infamous, where there's a dude in what seems like a bear costume giving fellatio to a man in a room randomly. That's what Wendy sees when she's freaking out and running through the house. Supposedly that's kind of Danny shining his projections and kind of giving her hints as to what's happening.
Yeah, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. At that point, I was just like, what?
And that's what that is supposed to symbolize right there. It's like that's another manifestation of that assault.
Wow, that is really deep. So I don't even think, I literally just watched this for the first time just now.
Yeah, by the way, that's all Rob Eggers' work. I just want to cite him real quick. Yeah.
Gotta cite your sources. Don't want to plagiarize.
Yeah. Straight up. Rob Eggers, he did it awesome. His thing was collective thinking or something like that. He did some good work on this.
What's interesting is that, there's just kind of an overall lack of a reliable observer throughout the entire film.
Yeah,
you can't trust anybody's observation, not Jack's, not Danny's, not even Wendy's.
You can't even really trust what's going on in the camera itself in a cinematographic angle.
Right, because of the way that it was set up.
And also, if you look closely, there's ways that the backgrounds change in other ways. Like, for instance, there's furniture that's there in one scene and then it's not there like directly in the next scene.
Or the way the pairs of the two twins are to show up everywhere.
Yeah, there's a little bit of foreshadowing towards the twin girls.
Okay.
Check this out. This foreshadowing is when you see them actually coming into the Overlook Hotel the first time when everybody's leaving. It's closing day. You see in the background, there's almost always a duo of women that's walking out with luggage and everything. It's kind of a little bit of a foreshadowing allusion to the actual girls that were killed.
Always in a pair. Yeah.
They're always in a pair. But they always say, later Sullivan, or whatever his name is, it's like, it's always just a pair of women.
Wow. I didn't notice that. That was one thing that kind of bugged me, though, is that they said that the girls were 8 and 10, but they were twins.
Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right?
Right. Maybe he meant to say they were 8 or 10.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Those girls definitely are identical twins. But anyway, yeah, like I said, there's an overall lack of a reliable observer throughout the entire plot, and really in that way, like you said, the cinematography and the plot kind of intertwine in a lot of ways.
They do, yeah.
And that's saying a lot because I mean, I had kind of our itinerary set up to where we talk about like the cinematography and directing and then the plot, but these things are completely intertwined throughout the film.
Do you know how I knew your name was Doc? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I can remember when I was a little boy, my grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining. And for a long time, I thought it was just the two of us that had the shine to us. Just like you probably thought you was the only one. But there are other folks, though mostly they don't know it or don't believe it. How long have you been able to do it? Why don't you want to talk about it?
I'm not supposed to.
Who says you ain't supposed to?
Tony.
With the plot, sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly what is going on and what story is being told.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how everything kind of unfurls, and a lot of it has to do with Danny and his powers. Because, I mean, a lot of that is happening, that's just his powers manifesting themselves, and he's just kind of finally coping with the powers that he has.
Right, and Tony is implied, and this is a little bit more subtle in the film, but I heard that this is explored more in the novel, is that Tony is actually just a manifestation of Danny's psychic abilities.
Well, it's also, going back to the sexual assault theory, it's also kind of seen as representative of what his dad actually did to him.
It's like a coping mechanism.
It's a coping mechanism, yeah. That's exactly what it is. And that's just in that particular theory.
Right. And I think in the novel it's revealed that his middle name is Anthony. So Tony is very much a part of Danny, but kind of a separate personality. One that, he actually is legitimately aware of as a separate character.
Yeah, he even calls Wendy Miss Torrance.
He calls her Mrs. Torrance, and I think at one point refers to her by first name.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was really interesting. And then there's that whole part in the end where he says Danny's gone. And I mean, does Danny ever come back?
He does. Yeah,
I feel like he does.
I'm thinking that in the end, Tony pretty much lets him go so that he can pretty much kind of run away and survive.
I think so, because he does seem more Danny at a certain point, but we don't really hear him talk again. So
Yeah.
That's going to be really interesting to see in the sequel, Dr. Sleep, which we'll mention in a minute here towards the end here.
Yeah,
but
that honestly, some of the readings that I got off of YouTube on this movie, it's going to make that movie Dr. Sleep's really fucking interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if any of the writers for that movie actually kind of integrated any of those theories into the script. It'll be very interesting.
Kind of like The Thing or something. Redoing that, remaking that.
Yeah.
Adding a prequel to it or something.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice too was that there's a lot of ambiguities in the plot.
Lots of them.
I mean, the one that sticks out the most, of course, is the end, and kind of being like, well, what is that about? Like, what are they trying to imply here? But even throughout the whole movie, because like I said, sometimes we don't know exactly. Is this ghosts? Is this just all in their heads? What's going on?
It's a ghost ship, dude. No.
I mean, obviously there has to be, like I said, some kind of a supernatural component, because there are certain things that the character information that the character should not have access to otherwise.
Yeah, well, that's because the shining powers in and of themselves, it's not just a singular power. It's a set of powers. It's telekinesis. It's telepathy. It's the ability to, listen in on other people from another room.
extra cognition.
Yeah, extra cognition. Like
precognition.
he does precognition as well.
Precogs.
Yeah, he's precognitive. Like if you see in that bathroom scene, like before they go to the Overlook Hotel where he's brushing his teeth and he's talking to Tony, it's like he already knows that Jack got the job. He's like, he's gonna call Wendy here in a few minutes. It's like he already knows.
The finger. Robert's doing the finger puppet.
Robert's doing the finger like this is Tony.
Danny's not here right now.
Danny's not here right now.
Please leave a message after the beep.
So, like we said before, Kubrick made a lot of modifications to the story, and in some ways, well, what do you guys think? Do you think that these modifications, from the original story, do you think they add or detract to the effect of the writing?
I think that it adds to the overall cinematic effect of the movie. That otherwise, if you look at the Shining miniseries, which is a more faithful adaptation, there's a reason why that went made for TV. I mean, there's a reason for it because, I mean, it's just so ridiculous that it could only work in that fucking format.
Yeah, a lot of it, like I said, there are some things that really only fit in a book, and when you try to translate it to screen, it doesn't come across as well. So I think in some ways, that's represented a lot more symbolically in the movie to kind of carry over some of that. And I think in some ways there are some new themes that are explored. And for instance, like you said, some theories that come out of this movie that may not have even, stemmed from the book or really been implicated. Yeah.
Well, I mean, another theme that kind of comes out from that cinematic element that we're talking about is history. Which, if you look on the walls throughout pretty much any given scene, you're bound to find at least a few pictures, if not an entire row of pictures of the hotel's history.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, and that's always something that's kind of looming over the characters, like all the time. That history, that everything that's kind of accumulated there, it's just looming over them. What? And Danny's Shining, and if you accept that Jack Torrance has Shining, it's like that just amplifies it and just makes that history manifest itself. Yeah. And it kind of contributes into the actual abuse itself. It kind of contributes to it a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's an oppressive, antagonistic tone from the get-go. That's what the Overlook Hotel is. It's oppressive history.
It's a roaring 20s parties that just keeps repeating itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we mentioned before, one change too is that Jack from the beginning is portrayed as a less sympathetic character, and a character who from the beginning is kind of implicated with physical abuse. And that's interesting too, because one other element that changes is, or supposedly, is that, in the novel over time, as he kind of gives into the madness, Jack is able to kind of let go of his writer's block, and he's able to write better. In the movie, that's completely changed. All up until, late in the film, especially, at the confrontation where, the climax finally surfaces and Wendy confronts Jack, and this all kind of goes to shit. You have the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And that's just written over and over and over and over again. Like, he never got over that writer's block in the movie.
No, he didn't. It's kind of interesting if you actually pause some of the frames in that scene when she's looking at that. You can see some of the typos that are in there.
Yeah, I noticed that. And inconsistencies. It was written in different writing styles. Sometimes, there's paragraph blocks. Sometimes it's just straight up lines. Sometimes it's indented. And
well, I saw another theory on the Anti-Logic video on this, which showed that there was a word that kind of came up a lot more than often and that's the word adult. Like, all work, no play makes Jack adult boy. Adult. And basically the theory is that everything that's happening in the movie is basically because Jack does not want the responsibilities of being a father. He doesn't want the responsibilities of being a husband or a caretaker. He doesn't want the responsibilities of an adult. He wants to have all the perks of adulthood, but with all the freedoms of childhood, of being in your youth and everything. And this starts to just manifest itself into this cancer that just starts growing within him. And it also kind of relates to how him and Danny's story are kind of parallel.
Oh, you can tell by every day when he was waking up with those mood swings, dude. Just like every day is just a different person. Like.
So how ironic is it then?
Yeah.
That he gets the position of caretaker.
Yeah, when in the end, Wendy is the one that does all the work.
Yeah, that's true. I saw.
Yeah.
She was doing all the repairs. At that point, Jack is just writing.
Yeah, she's doing his job, and even most of the time he's not writing.
Yeah,
he's
not writing.
playing.
Yeah.
Like there's that scene where he's throwing that ball onto the wall in the Colorado Lounge.
He doesn't write. He just writes that one line.
And then there's that one scene where he starts walking into the lobby, and all of Danny's toys are kind of laid out there.
Oh,
it basically kind of undercuts how he wants to revert back to the freedom and innocence of childhood, and he's just not reacting well to that.
So I mean, you could then say that it's probably implied that Jack himself suffered some kind of an abuse in childhood.
That's possible.
I mean, that's usually that's usually where these kind of situations stem from.
Yeah.
Is this cycle again of abuse, and the way that if you're abused as a child, you may end up doing that to your own child one day.
Yeah.
It's this systematic cycle that never ends. Except maybe in this film kind of does break the cycle. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens, in Dr. Sleep with Danny.
Well, it's already indicated from early plot synopses that's been released is that Danny does become an alcoholic, much like his dad. And alcoholism is definitely kind of an undercurrent in that whole thing as well. I mean, he wants to drink.
I like how he gives into his alcoholism without actually drinking.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. But remember, it's pretty much the manifestations of the hotel's history that's giving him that liquor.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, in a sense, you can see he does get drunk.
Yeah.
I love that whole scene where he's talking about the bartender and they're just saying every white man slogan that they're
yeah.
Women can't live with them, can't live without him.
White man's burden.
The white man's burden, yes.
Which is in the novel, by the way.
It's in the novel. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that whole scene was just really funny. I love how all the characters that Jack possibly hallucinates kind of cater to him, and that's kind of why I have that feeling. That's kind of why I feel that a lot of them are psychological manifestations, because they do kind of seem to cater to him,
and they're kind of foreshadowed kind of earlier on in the movie. Like a lot of the things that each member of this family see, that's kind of alluded to earlier. Like for instance, Danny Torrance, he references the fact that he doesn't have anyone to play with. Well, when he first encounters a hallucination that directly talks to him, what are they? It's the two little girls saying, "Come play with us forever and ever."
The dead girls.
And Wendy, whenever she's in the gold room, whenever they're first coming into the hotel, she's like, "This would be a great place for a party." Well, later on when she's trying to escape the Overlook Hotel and Jack and everything, what does she see? She sees that butler that says, "Great party, isn't it?"
Yeah.
What a wonderful party. And
it's really interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember which one pertains to Jack. I think what it is, it's the alcoholism and his desire to drink and what happens in the gold room.
The first thing I think he sees is the gold room, is the bartender.
Basically, he does not want to be sober.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and you can tell. And speaking of which, I mean, going into Jack Torrance's character in the casting, with Jack Nicholson, obviously known as well as the Joker.
Yeah.
And you still got that sinister and manic quality, but slowly, it spirals even further into insanity throughout the plot.
Yeah. I would like to think that maybe this role is what got Jack Nicholson the role of the Joker, because...
That and Wolf, remember that dude?
Oh, Wolf was great, man.
Famously, Stephen King actually was opposed to the casting of Jack Nicholson because of his sinister presence.
It's the eyebrows, yeah. No.
Yeah, but that's exactly what Kubrick wanted.
That's what Kubrick wanted.
Yeah.
Instead of making this a likable character that slowly transforms into insanity and, redeems himself at the end, like in the novel, this is a character who's from the beginning, and through the end gets what's coming to him, and he just kind of descends into what was kind of already set out for him, what I think he wanted. And he has, like you said, a sinister presence throughout the film.
Well, there's also the fact that the movie is essentially a really fucked up story about domestic violence.
Yeah.
It's like that plays into that as well.
I like how much of the plot, and you can tell a film is really good when you keep talking about it afterwards and you're analyzing and reading into things that weren't explicitly laid out for you. I mean, that's really, really interesting to kind of even try to figure out what is implicitly contained within the narrative.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? How much of this is intended? How much of these theories are actually in line? A movie that's able to do that, you know, that's true cinema to me.
Yeah, I mean, it elicits theories that actually make you think, and some theories where you're just like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? You know?
I mean, yeah, going back to Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance, you know, one other thing too is I believe some of the performance was ad-libbed or improvised, right? Like the famous, you know, mimetic "Here's Johnny" line.
Yeah, that was an ad-lib, I think.
You know, that was improvised, which and it's really just out of nowhere. It's like, what?
But it just undercuts the absolute panic of that scene. You know?
It does.
Because, I mean, that's what that is. That is total panic. I mean, he is just busting down that door, and what's really scary about that is how real that is. It's like...
It's a solid door. Relax.
Yeah, I mean, that shit happens. Domestic violence happens, man.
Yeah.
Shit like that happens. Breaking down doors and shit. You know, it happens.
Breaking down Wendy Torrance, you know, played by Shelley Duvall. Like you said, I mean, she is a very meek character, especially apparently as compared to the book. But one thing I noticed, and I think this is why Kubrick went in this direction, is that, you know, she does kind of gain her own strength and independence in her own way. And I think it's really interesting to see a character who's weak and being broken down, you know, like those doors, survive and struggle her way out. I think that's actually really uplifting in a way.
Because of her son, really.
Yeah.
Because of her son. Yeah. And I think that is really uplifting to, you know, maybe victims of domestic violence, is people who don't feel very strong and yet they can feel empowered. So, you know, something that may seem like it's depowering to women by portraying this character as meeker than she was in the book, actually in a way kind of empowers victims of domestic violence.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, but I mean, one thing to keep things in perspective right there is that typically most women will go back to their abusers many times before they finally leave. That's just kind of a statistic thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's a very complicated issue, and even this movie doesn't completely go into every angle of that, but it definitely provides a starkly realistic and timeless depiction of this type of horror.
Yeah, definitely. And I like how, you know, in the beginning, the way it's portrayed and it's very realistic is she makes excuses. I mean, the way that she tries to like justify and tell the doctor, you know, the situation in which Jack dislocated his son's arm, you know, and that's really interesting too, because you can tell like she's trying to kind of justify it in her own mind. And that was the red flag right from the start. And throughout the whole film, she caters to him. She does what he wants. I mean, the first scene where I really kind of felt like, okay, this guy's a dick, you know, is when he starts yelling at her and she just abides by it or whatever. But there's a certain turning point in the movie where after she's scared by him, you can tell she's ready to let go and she's trying to leave. And for her, there is no going back now, obviously.
No.
So,
especially given the actual fate of Jack Torrance.
Right. So, and what's really interesting is seeing her, Wendy, and Danny, you know, leave off screen, and they're not seen again. You know, right after that is pretty much when it just suddenly cuts to Jack dead, and that's it. And that's really interesting. I think from a certain perspective, that really adds to the themes in the movie. You know, that they just kind of leave, and we don't know what's going on, but they survived and they left.
It's a cliffhanger, dude. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's what makes this upcoming sequel so interesting. It's like, where exactly are they going to go with it?
Yeah, where do they go next? I'm really interested to see that. That was one thing I wanted to mention too, as far as the plot goes, is how like abrupt those time gaps are. You know, you'll be midway through a scene and then suddenly it cuts. You know, Tuesday. Yeah. 1 month later. I really like that. But going forward with the casting and the characters, I mean, we also have Scatman, Crothers, Dick Halloran.
Scatman Crothers.
He's a really likable character. I mean, possibly maybe a little bit underutilized, and that may be due to time constraints. I feel like he probably was a more prominent character in the book as a mentor character to Danny.
Because he's the one that really lays forth the actual ground rules of how the Shining works as a set of powers.
The crux of the movie.
Yeah, he's the crux of the movie very much. And in that scene, you see so much foreshadowing, even when he's talking to Danny about The Shining. There's a scene where Danny has a row of knives above him.
Yeah.
Which kind of undercuts, what's to come.
At first, I almost didn't trust the character, but over time, I was able to see, like, he's a very genuinely likable character. I really actually was kind of saddened whenever he just kind of unceremoniously dies.
Yeah.
They seem to be laying the groundwork for him to kind of be the rescuer, and in a way, he is the tool through which they're able to get the Snowcat to leave.
Yeah.
But I believe in the novel, he actually survives in the end, but in the movie, he's just killed, and that's it. I thought he was going to come back somehow from that.
No, he wasn't. No, that's a straight axe murder.
But that fucking guy in Slumber Party Massacre, he kept coming back.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how many times was he stabbed and fucking attacked and shit?
That actually pissed me off.
That was just the first one, right?
Yeah, just the first one.
But yeah,
seriously.
I like how, at the moment that Danny and him both kind of go into this catatonic state, and at the same time, and there's this link, and he knows, and he can't tell other characters this, but he rushes straight to the hotel. And I like how the movie switches back and forth between those perspectives and gives you a little bit of hope.
Which, by the way, entails him straight up flying from Miami to goddamn Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
In the middle of a fucking snowstorm.
And driving 5 hours.
Driving 5 hours.
Let me get this straight. He works at the hotel for most of the year and then goes home during the off season to Miami.
Hey, that's a pretty common thing in the hospitality industry.
The winter just set in and just the motel was covered in ice already.
Yeah.
Power lines were down. Nobody's going to stay there.
Yeah, no, nobody's going to stay through that.
They're pretty much waiting out the winter in that motel room.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, he was a really interesting character. And then, of course, Danny Lloyd's Danny Torrance. Did you guys notice that Jack Torrance plays Jack Nicholson plays Jack Torrance, and Danny Lloyd plays Danny Torrance?
Interesting, right?
That's funny.
That is interesting. It's kind of like that 90s sitcom thing that they do where they
just,
the same
just
names.
change the last name. Right?
Or Workaholics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of fits the archetype of that character, the kid who's unnaturally smart and gifted, although I hear that that's explored more in the novel. And in the movie, he is kind of nerfed a little bit into a more ordinary, relatable character. And then, of course, his psychic abilities that are, I guess, the focus of the film, The Shining. So, and I feel like with his performance and with the rest of the characters, I mean, they deliver a lot of strong performances. And a lot of that, for me, makes me wonder how much of it is the writing and how much of it is the acting.
I think it's a combination of the performances and the actual direction.
I think it's a combination, right?
And you have to remember, Stanley Kubrick, he co-wrote the screenplay and everything. So a lot of this is very much deliberate as per his desires for the movie.
Mostly facial expression too, old school.
Yeah, very much, facial expressions, how the compositing of the shots, like what colors are used. Like for instance, how the color red is used. Yeah. It's used kind of not so much to signify danger, which, I mean, it does come up there, but to kind of symbolize Jack and his desire to be free of responsibility.
Well, like in the bathroom scene.
Yeah.
The caretaker who's not the caretaker.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That entire bathroom is completely awash in red. That both represents Jack as a character, and it also represents the bloodshed that has continuously happened with this complete recurrence of the caretaker's deeds.
Yeah, the Mr. Grady character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the caretaker, period, is a character to me.
Right.
Like, to me, that's what I think. I don't think that the Overlook Hotel is so much as antagonist as the role of the caretaker himself is a fucking antagonist. Like, this shit is meant to happen.
So anybody can be the caretaker.
Yeah, anybody can be the caretaker. I mean, think about how so many of the shots that show Jack Nicholson, like in relation to mirrors, it kind of shows how his true self in many ways, right?
Yeah.
It kind of shows, where he's going.
Yeah.
Like in that scene in the bathroom where with Grady, it doesn't look like he's looking at Grady. It looks like he's looking at the mirror.
He's looking at himself the whole time.
That's really interesting. Oh, I like the mirror shots too. The red room, and how he writes that intentionally so that when she looks in the mirror,
it's backwards.
It says murder.
Yeah.
Murder.
Or going back a little ways into the movie, like whenever Wendy wakes Jack up and gives him breakfast in bed, the first thing, you don't see him in bed, like straight up. You see him through the mirror.
I noticed that.
You see a mirror representation of him.
I noticed that, and I thought about that. I was about to mention that, actually, was that whole scene that's in the mirror, and then you see her interact with him through the mirror. That is really cool, actually, the way they did that.
And in the fatherly love scene, which if you go by the sexual assault theory, it's like this is what kind of precipitates that.
Yeah.
It's like there's a specific angle where you see Jack Nicholson from the back, but you see his full representation in the mirror. Like, and he's very kind of decrepit looking and just completely fucked.
Wow, that's really deep.
Yeah, I mean that's what's happening right there. It's like that's the true Jack that you're seeing in those mirror composites.
I know. I'll have to rewatch the movie and look at some of this background stuff because that's really, really cool.
That's what's great about this movie. It's an infinitely rewatchable movie, and you will find new things in.
Probably every
time you watch it.
Bear in every scene.
Every time you...
Yeah, there's a bear in every scene, and that kind of ties into the filleting bear scene. That all, which also ties into the sexual assault theory.
Dressing up in fuzzies and filleting.
That almost makes the movie it does. It makes the movie retroactively more terrifying to me. Is that weird?
It makes it more disturbing to me.
More disturbing, right?
Because if you take into account some of Danny's dialogue, like especially when he's talking to the doctor and when he's talking to Scatman, it does kind of feel like somebody who's in a position of authority trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with Danny,
That disturbing quality, that's also present in Gummo, right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it kind of has that little undercurrent to it.
So this movie has a lot of undercurrents and explores a lot of themes, and sometimes it's difficult to tell how much of it is intended, how much of it is fan theory, but I think that really adds to the cultural impact and the pop cultural phenomenon that this is, the memes and the quotes and the references. And then, of course, we've got other projects. I think, you were mentioning Room 237.
Yeah, and that's basically a pseudo-analysis of The Shining. Like, there's maybe one or two theories there that kind of run in academic circles. Like, for instance, the Native American genocide theory, which, I mean, you can find plenty of that on YouTube, but they go into moon landing conspiracy shit, which, like we said earlier, which to me just kind of discredits everything. And
like Robert brought up the Indian burial ground, it was built on an Indian burial ground. So I can kind of see where that.
And there's lots of Native American imagery throughout.
That makes a lot of sense.
There's the artists, right?
There's Native American imagery in the studio, guys.
Oh, there is. Yes, thanks to our friend Dave.
Courtesy of Dave. We need Dave on the podcast.
Dave, come to the podcast, Dave.
I wish I could say Dave if you're listening to this, but Dave doesn't have internet. I don't think.
I don't think he has any way to listen to this podcast at all.
We'll have to download it and give it to him somehow.
Yeah.
We need to give him an iPod or something.
Yeah, exactly. Give him an iPod or fuck it, let's just burn a few episodes to a CD.
There you go. I think he'll appreciate that. And then, of course, we've referenced it several times, the upcoming sequel, Dr. Sleep, which apparently is both going to be an adaptation of the novel and a sequel to this movie existing in the same cinematic universe. So that's going to be really interesting the way they reconcile those.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to see what the writers do with many of the theories that came up with The Shining, especially with Danny.
and starring Ewan McGregor.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
He's kind of up and coming finally now. I mean, after not seeing him since Star Wars, he's kind of coming back. He was in that Christopher Robin movie.
Oh yeah.
He's going to be in this. It looks like they are going to be moving forward with the TV series with him as Obi-Wan, which is perfect because
that's
great.
Mean,
let's be real. Ewan McGregor. I don't know if I know we're going on a tangent here, but Ewan McGregor, really does capture the mannerisms of Alec Guinness perfectly in Star Wars.
He does.
I was looking at like a comparison, and it's crazy.
Oh man, yeah, he played a great Obi-Wan actually.
He was one of even the people who hate the prequels, kind of see him as one of the more redeemable aspects. Of course, I like it all, but
Yeah. Robert, what's your take on Ewan McGregor, man? Like, what's your take of his career and like how he acts and everything?
I forgot which actor that was.
Obi-Wan, young Obi-Wan.
Oh, in the Phantom Menace, right?
Yeah, and in the whole prequel trilogy.
Wasn't he also into Purge?
I get him mixed up with that other actor from The Shack, the guy who did the Terminator Salvation.
Oh,
I always get him mixed up with that guy.
Oh shit!
Know what I mean?
Christian Bale?
No, that other dude. He was like another T-800 or whatever.
Oh shit!
Like a cyborg Terminator with a heart. Remember?
Fuck,
that guy?
dude. Yeah.
I get him mixed up a lot with that guy.
That's weird. I don't even remember who that is. That's weird. Damn it.
But yeah, I mean, The Shining definitely manifests itself in our pop culture. I mean, like I said, there's so many memes. The "Here's Johnny" quote and the memes that reference that. And then, of course, we did mention the miniseries that is apparently more faithful to the novel, but also not as well received as this movie is. So, I mean, if that's telling...
It's still kind of worth it to watch it. Kind of like it's worth it to watch the It miniseries before you watch both chapters of the It movies.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I was able to better appreciate It Chapter 2 after watching the miniseries.
Yeah.
In between, after watching the Chapter 1. So I think it is good to see different takes on the work. And Stephen King, for being as wild of a writer as he is, I mean, I really like to see the different ways that different directors and writers take his stories. So I guess I definitely want to look into that, is looking at the miniseries.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, The Shining, it's one of those movies that even the movie itself has embedded itself in the culture beyond, like the novel. You know what I mean?
Even beyond its own genre.
Yeah, definitely. What are your final thoughts on The Shining, Robert?
The Shining. I still, no matter how many times, I think I'm always missing something. Trying to still understand something or I'm not getting it, It's like every time I put it on.
Yeah, every time, right?
Yeah, there's always just another layer to pull off there.
I've seen it the one time, and I saw it just now, but...
Yeah, this is the first time you've actually seen this movie, huh?
It is, and I just watched it right before recording.
Honestly, I'm kind of jealous of that, man, because I remember the first time that I watched the movie. It was back in maybe the early 2000s when there was still like Hollywood Video and everything, and my buddy and I, we went on a little horror kick. Like we were watching like Evil Dead, Dead Alive, fucking American Werewolf in London, Friday the 13th, all that shit. And we got to The Shining and we watched that on VHS in my brother's room on a little shitty TV. And it was still so mesmerizing. It was still such a frightening movie in so many ways.
Yeah, I definitely need to rewatch it now. Like, I already feel like I need to rewatch it just to notice everything.
Yeah, dude, if you love cinema, you will watch this movie a lot. Like, I've seen this movie countless times since then.
Yeah, I would watch this one back to back with Cuckoo's Nest, you know?
Yeah, with
And that was like 1979.
Oh, definitely.
Nicholson, too.
Yeah. I would actually watch this probably alongside another Kubrick movie. Like, I would even watch this alongside Dr. Strangelove, which is a movie that we'll have to do on the podcast eventually because, I mean, it's also kind of relevant as far as global politics is concerned. I mean, it's a satire, very much so. But I will go ahead and give my final thoughts on The Shining. I mean, I think that it's a movie that is quite possibly one of the most academically analyzed movies, and also analyzed by just armchair critics in general. And it's hard not to see why. I mean, everything that we've gone into here, I mean, the various theories, you know, the actual way that the sets were designed, the way the music was utilized, the actual performances that Kubrick got out of Duvall and Nicholson. I mean, it's also infinitely fascinating. And that, I mean, last night was the first time I've actually watched the movie in a couple of years, and especially knowing some of the newer theories that I've heard, I mean, it made it more disturbing. It made it more poignant. It made it even more cinematically, structurally sound, you know, and it really just Kubrick at his finest. You know?
I'll believe it.
It's Kubrick at his absolute finest, and he had such an impactful career. I mean, Barry Lyndon, Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, Dr. Strangelove, like I said. I mean, he's done even work going back into like the 50s and 60s, like with The Killers, and he also did Spartacus. But I mean, this is a director that we will definitely get into a lot more in the future. I mean, I would love to do A Clockwork Orange, which is seen as a highly disturbing movie and a classic of disturbing cinema, actually.
Is Takashi Miike disturbing? Or
It's almost there. It's its own kind of disturbing.
Is that Malcolm McDowell, Clockwork Orange?
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell. Yeah, that's him. Nice. Yeah, that's a pretty profoundly fucked up movie. Yeah, it is. Its own right.
Yeah, this movie is in its own right.
Singing in the rain.
I mean, as far as my final thoughts go, you know, like I said, this was my first time watching this movie. I definitely feel like this movie needs more rewatches to fully grasp. And I definitely feel like I need to analyze this a little bit more. But man, there's just so much to think about. I mean, a real true cinematic work, you know, like I said before, is one that's going to leave you know, thinking later, you know, what was really going on, what was implicit to the plot, you know, and also just a movie that leaves you thinking, you know, mind-boggling for hours afterwards. And this movie delivers on that.
Man, I can't wait to show you some of the other things in my collection that are similar to that. Just wait till you check out Come and See, man. That's another movie that has some profound impact.
Come and See on your mom.
Oh, wow, you're making jokes like that. And that movie is very much about Soviet partisans in World War II. it's namely child soldiers in World War II. So, yeah.
A soldier boy.
Yeah,
Soldier
and yes,
boy
and yes, there are Nazis, and from what I heard, it's coming to the Criterion Collection.
Oh, hell yeah.
Woo! So, fuck yeah. I happen to have a bootleg of that movie, and I'm going to show it to y'all. Y'all need to see it. It's something that is very impactful.
I'll believe it.
Yeah. And it's almost impactful in the same way that The Shining or something Kubrickian would be.
So, Beau, what is coming up with Collateral Cinema Season 3, I'm sorry.
Season 3, yeah. Well, next up, we are going into our first indie episode of the season, and we're excited to announce, I think we announced this a few episodes ago, but screw it, I'm going to announce it again. We're excited to announce that the First Glance Film Festival approached us, and they have allowed many of the filmmakers that are selections in that festival send their work to us for reviewing and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to do at least 3 to 4 movies per episode. We're going to do a couple more throughout the season. And we have yet to really decide which ones of these movies that we're actually going to review first. I mean, I have a general idea. Maybe we might do first come, first serve. But it's going to be very interesting. We have some awesome filmmakers that sent us some short films and even a documentary that is a little challenging, a little different from some of the stuff that we've done before.
Definitely want to challenge ourselves. I mean,
yeah, and to everybody who has selections in the First Glance Film Festival, keep them coming. And if you are just an independent movie filmmaker who may not have a selection in one of these film festivals, you can even feel free to go ahead and send us your work. It's like, we'll definitely check it out. And our next numbered episode, our next official episode in the season,
we've referenced it
many
times.
We've
built it up.
Yeah, isn't that right, Robert? You know exactly what we're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We are talking about a little Christian movie that was reviewed by the Cinema Snob, which is one of our favorite reviews of his.
My favorite.
Yeah.
All time.
It's the fucking Buttercream Gang.
The fucking Buttercream Gang.
This movie is another so good it's bad masterpiece.
I mean, it was going to be either this or Neil Breen, and we decided to go with Buttercream Gang for this season.
We're definitely going to get to Neil Breen eventually.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
we may even find a way to squeeze him into this season somehow.
We'll see what happens, but yeah, I'm excited because the Buttercream Gang is it's just a work all of its own.
It's a masterpiece of
Wonder Breadness.
Wonder Bread, whiteness from
Miracle Whip
from Whiteistan
with a crust cut diagonal.
Yeah, seriously, people, it's the whitest thing you'll ever see. So white, even Trump would fucking have something to say about it. Like, this is just too white. It's too white. I can't deal with it.
Well, Trump's not really a white person anyway. He's orange.
That's right.
He's a Simpsons character.
He's a Simpsons character. Yes. Fucking perfect. Oh my God. But yeah, that's what's coming up with Collateral Cinema. We have a lot more interesting movies coming down the line. I think we might be doing The Fifth Element somewhere.
Yeah, we are.
Soon.
That's one of my suggestions. And
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, you say we were gonna kind of challenge ourselves in the future. This movie, was a suggestion of mine as well, and I'd never seen it before. I kind of wanted to challenge myself to, suggest a movie that I'd never seen, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's and like I said, I'm jealous of you, man. The first time watching this movie is always a fucking trip.
Always the best time watching it.
It was a trip the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm super excited about the rest of Collateral Cinema Season 3. And guys, Collateral Gaming Season 2, we just released our first episode, our season premiere on Uncharted. Go check that out on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts. You can also look forward to... our next episode is going to be our Halloween special and an indie movie episode, indie game review. And that's going to be PT.
Ooh, that's going to be fun. I think I'm going to be on that episode because I never played PT, but I got into watching a lot of playthroughs of it, and it is a very fascinating game.
You can't play it anymore, so
that's unfortunate. Supposedly you can buy PS2s that are like $1,000 with it preloaded on it or something like that.
I mean, PS4s?
PS4s, I should say, or PS3s.
It deleted itself off of my PS4, and I'm so disappointed because I can't re-download it. I was going to keep it on there forever, and somehow it deleted itself. But
that's bullshit.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I'm super excited about that. We're not going to worry too much about not spoiling anything like we normally do in our indie game reviews because the game isn't out anymore. So
yeah.
But even if you haven't played it, if you've watched a few playthroughs, I mean, you've kind of seen what this game is. So I think even though we can't play it again to to talk about it, it's still going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And then our next numbered episode on Collateral Gaming is going to be Red Dead Redemption 2. So stay tuned for that in November. Well, guys, you can find Collateral Cinema on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Podbean,
iHeartRadio, and many other podcast apps and everything, and that is thanks to Chill Lover Radio.
Thanks to Chill Lover Radio.
Yeah, you can download their app off of the Google Play Store and in the Apple Store as well.
Yeah, Chill Lover Radio has been a lot to work with. So yeah, find Collateral Cinema wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And also, come and check out our Patreon.
Yes, check out our Patreon. Guys, I worked really hard on uploading all of our commentaries.
Yeah. Ash put his time in working on this stuff. So please stop by, join one of our tiers. It starts at $1. From now on, $1 will get you a shout out on an episode near the end of the episode.
I'm also planning on converting all our podcast episodes into video episodes.
Yeah,
eventually, and I'm doing the same with Collateral Gaming. I'm slowly getting myself caught up with that and working on the Patreon to have more Patreon content there as well. So.
Yeah, we maybe need to put some polls up or something like that to kind of get people coming in. Maybe we even need to have a poll even just on Twitter where somebody just, maybe we'll go ahead and just add an extra episode and have Twitter decide what movie we watch.
That would be really cool.
That would be cool.
That would be cool, right?
Guys, leave us your feedback.
Yeah.
Leave us reviews unless they're negative. No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, leave your feedback. We definitely want to hear it.
Yeah, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we don't like negative reviews, but I mean, obviously we like to learn from our mistakes too. So yeah, be honest. Give us your feedback. If there's something that you want to DM us or email us, feel free to.
Yeah.
Our social media channels are open. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
I think that's mostly all that we're on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
actually, we do have Tumblr and WordPress.
Tumblr, yeah. I think we're on those as well, but
yeah.
Yeah. And then Collateral Gaming is on all of those avenues as well, so you can message us there and interact with us there. And we all have our own personal social media accounts. I mean, you can find that. I'm Ashley Chancellor. That's Robert Ortegon and Beau Maddox. Dakota Chancellor is usually on here as well, so you can search us all up on social media. We're definitely open to interacting with the fans. Personally, I actually pretty much accept any friend request because I naturally assume that it may be someone who's reaching out to me because of the podcast.
Yeah.
So more than likely, I'll add you unless you look like you're a Russian bot.
Oh, there's lots of those on Facebook.
I do try to be a little. I try to scrutinize a little bit. I'll at least glance at the account.
Yeah.
To see if it looks like it's a bot. But yeah, more than likely, I'll add you. So, and you feel free to message me as well. I don't know about these guys, but
feel free to contact us. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, guys, I'm Ashley Chancellor.
I'm Beau Maddox.
I'm Robert Ortegon.
And I'm Dakota Chancellor.
I'm Dakota Chancellor. I'm a little buddy. This is Collateral Cinema, everybody. We are out.
5,000 like Andre.
That's right.
3,000. Sorry.
Collateral Cinema is an L Company production. All music and movie clips are owned by the respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.